My husband didn't book me a room on our family trip, then let me stand in the lobby like I was nothing but extra baggage. His family watched me walk out with my suitcase, thinking I would stay quiet to protect his pride. But Grandpa saw the truth before anyone else did. And by dinner, my husband had no pride left to protect. The clerk looked at my driver's license, typed my married name into the lodge computer, and frowned in that careful way people frown when they can already see bad news on a screen, but do not want to be the first person to say it out loud. "Mrs. Arledge," she said, "I don't have an active room for you." I smiled because I thought she meant the usual small travel mistake. A typo, a missing middle initial, a reservation under my husband's email instead of mine. Then she typed again, slower this time, and her face changed. "There was a room under your name. It was canceled 12 days ago." Behind me, the lobby doors opened, and my husband walked in with his mother, his sister, and the rest of his family laughing like the weekend had started exactly the way they wanted. By the next night, Breckan Arledge would stand in that same lodge dining hall with his grandfather watching him, his future slipping out of his hands, and every person he wanted to impress would learn what kind of man cancels his wife's room and lets her look like the problem. My name is Rilla Arledge. I was 33 years old then, living in Fort Collins, Colorado, working as a regulatory compliance manager for a medical device supplier. My job was not glamorous, but it was clean in the way honest work can be clean. I read records, I checked signatures, I noticed what other people wanted to skip. I spent my days asking simple questions that made expensive people uncomfortable. Who approved this? Where is the test result? Why does this date not match that date? Breckan used to say that was why he loved me. "You see through fog," he told me when we were dating. 6 years into our marriage, that same skill had become inconvenient. His family liked my usefulness, not my presence. I edited his speeches. I checked his travel plans. I reminded him about birthdays, dinner reservations, board meetings, and the names of people he needed to flatter. His mother Vera called me practical. His father Lowell called me steady. His sister Tovia called me low maintenance, with a smile sharp enough to cut skin. Nobody said unwanted. They were too polished for that. They said easy, flexible, independent. The words sounded like compliments until I realized they were just soft covers for neglect. The family trip to Taos, New Mexico was supposed to be important, not just a vacation. It was Oren Pike Arledge's 84th birthday and the annual Founders Weekend for Arledge Outdoor Systems, the company he had built from a repair shed, one pickup truck, and a stubborn belief that people should be able to trust equipment in bad weather. The company made camping stoves, water filters, emergency tents, and field kits for hikers, ranchers, rescue teams, and government contractors. Oren still owned the controlling shares. He still read quarterly reports with a pencil in his hand. He still knew which warehouse had a cracked loading dock and which sales manager rounded numbers when he was nervous. That weekend, everyone believed he was finally going to announce Breckan as the next president. Vera had already told half the family to bring nice clothes for the founders' dinner. Lowell had been practicing a toast. Tovia had booked a photographer for legacy portraits, which meant pictures of the bloodline, the children, the sons, the daughters, and anyone else she decided looked expensive enough to belong in the frame. I was invited because I was Breckan's wife, but I was not treated like the reason for anything. I asked about the rooms twice before we left, once at our kitchen counter while Breckan packed cufflinks into a leather case, and once by text the morning before I drove down. He was flying from Denver with his parents because Vera said long drives made her neck stiff. I was driving alone from Fort Collins because I had a meeting late Thursday and because someone needed to bring the garment bag Breckan forgot at our house. "Did you book our room?" I asked. He did not look up from his phone. "Everything with your name on it is handled." That line would return to me later with a different meaning. At the time, I believed him. Marriage trains you to trust certain sentences because the alternative is admitting you are sleeping beside someone who can look you in the face and make your humiliation sound like logistics. I packed my navy blazer, a cream sweater, my laptop, the garment bag, and a blue folder full of compliance notes Breckan had asked me to review months earlier for a new compact stove launch. He had said Grandpa might ask about it. I had said the safety documentation looked thin. Breckan had kissed my forehead and told me not to worry my beautiful little audit brain. Then he sent Oren a corrected proposal with my warnings rewritten under his name. The drive to Taos was long and quiet, the kind of western drive that makes your thoughts stretch out with the road. I passed dry grass, low hills, far mountains, gas stations with sun-faded signs, and little towns that looked like they had learned to survive by not expecting too much from anyone. By the time I reached Juniper Mesa Lodge, the sky had turned copper behind the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. The lodge was beautiful in a deliberate, old-money desert way. Adobe walls, blue wooden doors, terracotta floors, courtyard lanterns, piñon smoke curling from an outdoor fireplace. There were silver-haired board members in wool coats near the lobby bar, cousins with matching luggage, children running circles around a fountain, and a long table near the front desk covered with welcome baskets stamped with the Arledge Company logo. I remember feeling tired but hopeful. That is the embarrassing part. Even after years of being seated near exits and cropped out of photos, I still walked into that lobby thinking maybe this weekend would be different because it mattered. I thought being useful long enough might finally become being valued. The woman at the front desk wore a black blazer and a turquoise necklace. Her name tag said Etta Cornwell, Lodge Manager. She was kind, which somehow made the moment worse. She checked Breckan's last name first, then mine, then my maiden name because I asked her to. Her smile faded one search at a time. "We have Mr. Breckan Arledge in Casita 6, she said. "Vera and Lowell Arledge in Casita 4. Tovia and Quillendane in Casita 5. Mr. Oren Arledge in the Founder Suite. Several rooms for company guests." She paused. "But nothing active for Rilla Arledge." I felt the first small coldness move through me. "Could it be under Kiever?" She typed. "That is the canceled one." She turned the monitor slightly, not enough for me to see private information, just enough to show there had been an entry. My name, arrival Friday, departure Sunday, canceled 12 days ago. "Who canceled it?" I asked. Etta's professional face came back, but not fast enough. "The request came through the booking email on file." "My husband's email?" She did not answer directly. She did not need to. I called Breckan. He did not answer. I called again. This time he sent me to voicemail after 2 rings. Then the lobby doors opened, and he walked in with Vera, Lowell, Tovia, Quillen, and 2 cousins behind him, all of them smelling like airport coffee and expensive wool. Breckan looked handsome in the way men look handsome when they have never had to wonder whether a room will be there when they arrive. He saw me at the desk with my suitcase beside me, and irritation crossed his face before concern did. That was the first honest thing he gave me all weekend. "What's wrong now?" he asked, not loudly, but loud enough that Etta lowered her eyes, and a board member near the fireplace turned his head. I said, "There's no room for me." Vera made a soft noise, like I had dropped a fork at dinner. Tovia smiled with one side of her mouth. Breckan looked at the desk, then at me. "Rilla, don't start this in the lobby." I stared at him. There was a room. It was canceled. His jaw tightened. For half a second, I saw the truth pass across his face. Not surprise. Calculation. Tovia stepped closer, her camel coat open over a cream dress I knew she had bought for the legacy portraits. "Maybe it's for the best," she said lightly. "Rilla's always so independent. She'll find something." Vera touched Breckan's sleeve as if he were the injured one. A wife should know how to adjust without making a scene. Lowell said nothing. Quillen smirked into his phone. Breckan exhaled hard and looked at me the way a man looks at a delayed flight. "There are rooms for the family and the company guests. This weekend is complicated." I said, "I am your wife." His eyes flicked toward the board members, then back to me. He lowered his voice, but not enough. "You're my wife, Rilla. You're not the reason we're here." The lobby went quiet in the way public places go quiet when strangers pretend not to listen. I heard a child stop laughing near the fountain. I heard Etta's fingers leave the keyboard. I heard my own breathing stay steady, which felt like a miracle. I asked him one question. "Where did you expect me to sleep?" Breckan gave a little shrug, almost elegant. "I thought you'd solve it. You always do." There it was. 6 years of marriage reduced to one sentence. I solve it. I adjust. I carry the garment bag. I correct the proposal. I disappear when the family picture needs clean edges. I looked at Vera, who was studying the floor as if dignity might be hidden between the terracotta tiles. I looked at Tovia, who looked pleased with herself. I looked at Breckan, my husband, the man who had once promised in front of 200 guests that there would always be a place for me beside him. Then I picked up my suitcase handle. "Then I'll solve it." Vera stepped forward. "Rilla, don't embarrass your husband." I turned back just long enough to answer. He did that himself. Then I walked out through the blue doors into the cold New Mexico evening, past the courtyard lights, past the welcome baskets, past the company logo printed on ribbon, with my husband's garment bag still over my arm, because even then, some trained part of me did not drop what was his. I drove south in the dark until the lodge lights disappeared behind me. My phone buzzed in the cup holder over and over, but I did not touch it. The desert at night has a strange honesty. It does not comfort you. It does not perform. It just stretches out black and wide and lets you understand how small a person can feel without pretending that smallness is shameful. I found the Blue Kiln Motor Inn outside Espanola, a 2-story roadside place with turquoise doors and a flickering vacancy sign. The man at the desk barely looked up from a basketball game on a tiny television. Room 12 was clean enough. Thin blanket, old heater, plastic ice bucket, one lamp that hummed when I turned it on. I hung Breckan's garment bag on the bathroom door and sat on the edge of the bed with my coat still on. There were 21 missed calls and 9 messages. Breckan, "You made that awkward." Vera, "Come back when you can behave." Tovia, "Grandpa doesn't need stress this weekend." Lowell, "Just apologize and sleep on the sofa in Tovia's casita." Not one person wrote, "Are you safe?" Not one person wrote, "I'm sorry." That was the part that settled hardest. The missing room was cruel. The silence after it was information. I called the lodge after 10 minutes because my work has taught me that pain becomes clearer when you attach dates to it. Etta answered. I told her I understood privacy rules, but I needed to know whether I had misunderstood anything. Her voice softened. "Mrs. Arledge, I can confirm a reservation existed in your name. It was prepaid by a third party. It was canceled by written request from the email attached to the family booking. The refund was issued to a card ending in the same 4 digits used for Mr. Breckan Arledge's incidentals. She paused. I'm sorry. That's all I can say. I thanked her because she had done more for me in 10 minutes than my husband's family had done all evening. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up old emails, not because I planned revenge, but because my mind needed a pattern. Patterns are how I survive shock. A mistake leaves confusion behind. A cancellation leaves a record. Breckan had not forgotten me. He had filed me under unnecessary. The first memory that came back was the company gala in Denver the year before. Breckan had called me from his office at midnight, panicked because Oren asked him to give the closing speech, and he had nothing but 3 jokes and a quote from a leadership book he had not read. I stayed up until 3 writing him something clean and strong about legacy, safety, and trust. At the gala, he delivered it perfectly. People clapped. Vera cried into a linen napkin. Oren watched from the head table with his unreadable old eyes. When dessert was served, I was seated 2 tables back beside a regional vendor and someone's divorced cousin because Tovia said the front table was board family only. Breckan never mentioned who wrote the speech. Later in the elevator, he squeezed my hand and said, "You know I appreciate you." I believed that private thanks could make up for public erasure. I was wrong. The second memory was the lake cabin weekend near Pagosa Springs. I made the grocery list, packed the first aid kit, checked the weather, reminded Lowell to bring his blood pressure pills, and cooked breakfast for 12 people because Vera said the hired cook had the flu. On Sunday, Tovia posted photos with the caption, "Arledge Bloodline Weekend." In one picture, my hand was visible at the edge of the frame, holding a plate of pancakes. Not my face, just my hand, useful and unnamed. The third memory was worse because it had a signature. Breckan had asked me to review the launch packet for the company's new compact stove, the Emberlight V3. He said he wanted to impress Oren with adult-level diligence. I found a problem in the heat shield testing. Not a small problem. A field unit could overheat if used on uneven rock with a certain fuel canister. I wrote a clean correction plan in a blue folder. Delay launch, retest, revise the user warning, change supplier coding. Breckan thanked me, copied my language, deleted my name, and sent it to Oren as his own strategic review. When I asked about it, he laughed and said, "Marriage is a team sport, Rilla." Funny how team sports only counted when he scored. Near midnight, I called Merritt Solin, my college roommate, and the only person I knew who could hear disaster in my voice before I named it. She picked up with a sleepy, "Tell me who needs to be buried." I almost laughed, but it broke halfway. I told her everything, the lobby, the canceled room, Breckan's line, the texts. She listened without filling the silence, which is a rare kindness. When I finished, she said, "A husband who forgets your room is careless. A husband who cancels it is making a point." I closed my eyes. "What point?" "That your place depends on his permission." The heater clicked on and blew dry air against my ankles. Merritt kept going, softer now. "You keep calling it loyalty. They keep using it as free labor." I looked at Breckan's garment bag hanging from the bathroom door, his dinner jacket safe because I had carried it through my own humiliation. In that ugly little motel room, with a humming lamp and highway noise outside, something inside me stopped negotiating. The next morning, I woke before sunrise with my phone on the pillow beside me. There was one new message from a number I did not expect. Oren Pike Arledge. "Come back for dinner. Bring the blue folder you think nobody read." I sat up so fast the thin blanket slid to the floor. I read it 3 times. The blue folder. The compliance notes. the work Breckan had taken. Oren knew, or at least he knew enough to ask. My first instinct was to say no. Pride wanted to keep driving north until Taos became a bad story in the rearview mirror. But dignity is not the same as escape. Sometimes dignity means returning to the place where people expected you to disappear and standing there with your name intact. I showered, put on the cream sweater I had packed for the founders' dinner, and drove back toward Juniper Mesa Lodge with the blue folder on the passenger seat. The morning light made the desert look almost gentle. It was not gentle. It was simply clear. When I reached the lodge, Etta saw me through the glass doors and came around the desk before I could speak. "Mrs. Arledge," she said quietly, "Mr. Oren asked that you be given casita too." She handed me a key card in a small paper sleeve. My name was written on it in black ink. Rilla Arledge. For a moment I could not move. "Casita too?" I said. Etta nodded. "It was the original room he arranged for you. I believe he reinstated it himself." I took the key with fingers that did not feel like mine. The room was at the edge of the courtyard, behind a blue door with a clay pot of lavender beside it. Inside were white walls, a woven blanket, a fireplace, a small writing desk, and French doors facing the mountains. On the table sat a note in Oren's square handwriting. A place should not have to be begged for. I stood there for a long time, holding that card, understanding that the room had existed all along. My husband had not failed to make space for me. He had removed it. The founders' dinner began at 7 in the lodge dining hall. The room glowed with candles and firelight. Old company photographs lined the adobe walls. Oren in front of the first repair shed. Oren beside a muddy pickup. Oren with factory workers in the 80s. Oren shaking hands with rescue teams after a winter storm contract. There were 28 people at the table. Family, board members, senior managers, 2 longtime suppliers, and Adair Koss, Oren's attorney and business advisor, a quiet woman with silver hair cut to her jaw and eyes that missed nothing. Breckan stood near the fireplace in the dinner jacket I had brought, laughing with a board member. When he saw me enter, his expression tightened. Not guilt, alarm. Vera's lips parted. Tovia leaned toward Quillan and whispered something. Oren, seated at the head of the table, lifted his eyes to me and gave one small nod. Not warm, not dramatic, just acknowledgement. In that room, it felt like shelter. Breckan reached me before I sat down. "You came back," he said under his breath. "You left something with my name on it," I replied. His eyes dropped to the blue folder in my hand. Color rose in his neck. "Don't do this tonight." I almost smiled. Men like Breckan always call truth bad timing when it arrives in front of witnesses. "I'm here for dinner," I said. "Then act like it." He walked away before I could answer. I took my seat halfway down the table, not beside him. My name card was there. Actual paper. Actual ink. A small thing, unless you have spent years being treated like an optional detail. Dinner started with green chile stew, roasted trout, blue cornbread, and expensive wine Tovia kept praising like she had personally grown the grapes. Vera performed calm. Lowell performed confidence. Breckan performed air. He laughed too loudly, touched Oren's shoulder twice, and kept glancing at Adair's leather document case near her chair. After the main course, Lowell tapped his glass and said a few soft words about legacy. Vera dabbed her eyes at the right moment. Then Breckan stood. The room settled around him. This was the moment he had wanted, the one he believed belonged to him. He lifted his glass and smiled that public smile I had once found charming. "Grandpa built this company on grit, trust, and family," he said. And this family has always known how to protect what belongs inside the circle. His eyes moved over the room and skipped me so smoothly it almost looked practiced. Some of us are born to carry the name forward. Some of us support from the edges. Both roles matter. Tovia smiled into her wine. Breckan continued, warming to himself. And my wife, Rilla, as usual, handled herself. Most independent woman I know. Didn't even need a room. A few people gave uncomfortable little laughs because powerful families teach guests to laugh before they know what is funny. Oren set down his fork. The sound was not loud, but the room noticed. "Rilla," he said, "is that true?" Every face turned toward me. Breckan's smile froze. I put both hands around my water glass, not because I was afraid, but because I wanted them still. "No," I said. My voice came out even. "I needed a room. My husband canceled it." The silence changed shape. Before it had been polite. Now it had weight. Breckan gave a sharp laugh. "That's ridiculous." I looked at him. "The lodge confirmed there was a reservation in my name. It was canceled 12 days ago from your booking email. The refund went back to your card." Vera whispered, "Rilla, stop." Oren looked at Adair. She opened her leather case and placed a folder on the table. Not my blue one. Another one. Cream paper. Printed records. Clean tabs. Adair did not speak. She simply slid the first page toward Oren, who did not look at it. He already knew what it said. "I paid for Rilla's casita," Oren said. His voice was rough, old, and perfectly controlled. "I paid for it because she was invited by me, not as luggage attached to Breckan, not as help, as family." Breckan's face drained. Oren continued. "The reservation was made 6 weeks ago. It was canceled by written request from Breckan's email 12 days ago. The refund was issued to his card. Yesterday, he stood in my lobby and watched his wife carry a suitcase out of this lodge. Nobody moved. Even Tovia had stopped pretending to drink. Oren turned his eyes to Breckan. "You did not just cancel a room. You tried to teach her that her place could be removed without consequence." Breckan pushed back his chair. "Grandpa, this is being twisted. She overreacted. I thought she wanted privacy. She likes handling her own things." The lie was so weak it almost embarrassed me for him. Oren looked at him for a long moment. "Sit down." Breckan sat. Then Oren reached for my blue folder. The room was not the first thing with Rilla's name removed from it. Breckan's hand tightened around his glass. Oren opened the folder and took out my notes on the Emberlight 5-3. My handwriting was in the margins. My color-coded tabs were still attached. My stomach dropped, not from fear, but from the strange shock of being seen. Oren held up a page. 3 months ago, Breckan sent me a safety correction plan. He presented it as his own work. It delayed a product launch and likely saved this company from a recall, maybe worse. I asked for the draft history because good work usually leaves fingerprints. These were Rilla's. Adair placed another document beside it. Breckan's emailed proposal, same structure, same phrases. My warnings polished into his voice. A board member leaned forward. Lowell closed his eyes. Vera looked at Breckan like she had never considered that cruelty and incompetence could live in the same sun. Breckan tried to recover. "She helped me. She's my wife. That's what spouses do," I answered before Oren could. "Help is when you say thank you. Theft is when you erase the person who did the work." My voice did not shake. That surprised me most of all. Breckan stared at me as if I had spoken a language he did not know I possessed. Oren nodded once, not to praise me, but because the sentence had landed where it belonged. Then he stood. At 84, standing took him a second. He put both palms on the table and rose slowly, and every person in that dining hall seemed to understand that an old man does not stand during dinner unless the room is about to change. "I built Arledge Outdoor Systems because bad equipment can kill good people," he said. "Trust is not a slogan. It is a discipline. You either practice it in small things or you fail it in large ones." His eyes stayed on Breckan. "You wanted my chair, but you could not protect your wife's chair at dinner. You wanted my company, but you stole credit for the very work that protected it." Breckan's mouth opened, but no sound came. Oren's voice sharpened. "A man who cancels his wife's room to teach her her place does not get the keys to my company." That was the sentence that broke him. I saw it happen. Not loudly, not like glass. More like a beam inside him splitting under weight. His pride had always depended on rooms full of people believing his version first. Now the room had records. Oren turned to Adair. "The succession announcement is withdrawn. Effective Monday, Breckan returns to operations training under Marston Vale at the Pueblo warehouse. No executive authority, no company card, no discretionary account. 12 months, reviewed quarterly." Vera gasped. Tovia whispered, "Grandpa." Oren did not look at her. "There will also be an external audit of the Emberlight project, and all documents Breckan submitted under his name this year." He turned toward me then. "Rilla Keever Arledge will be credited in the compliance record for the V3 correction. If she is willing, the company will offer her an independent consulting contract at market rate. Not as family favor, as earned work." The dining hall stayed silent so long I could hear the fire shift in the adobe fireplace. Breckan looked at the board members first, because humiliation always checks the audience before it checks the injury. Then he looked at me. There was anger in his face, but beneath it something more helpless. He had expected me to absorb the insult privately. He had not expected the room to have paperwork. Vera reached for her wine and missed the stem. Lowell stared at the tablecloth. Tovia's perfect mouth had gone flat and pale. Quillen studied his lap with sudden devotion. Oren sat down again and picked up his spoon as if he had merely corrected a menu error. "Eat," he said. Nobody ate. I looked at the blue folder on the table, at my handwriting visible under the candlelight, and felt something I had not expected. Not victory, not revenge. Recognition. There is a difference. Revenge asks someone else to hurt. Recognition lets you stop pretending you were not hurt first. After dinner, Breckan followed me into the courtyard. The night was cold enough to make every breath visible. Pinon smoke drifted from the outdoor fireplace, and the blue doors around the courtyard looked almost black under the lanterns. "You ruined me," he said. His voice was low and raw. I turned to face him. For 6 years, I had known every version of that face. Charming Breckan, tired Breckan, needy Breckan, public Breckan, private Breckan. This one was new. This was Breckan without a room full of people believing him. "No," I said. "I stopped helping you hide." He stepped closer. "You're my wife." I looked at him for a long moment, and the sentence felt old, like something left too long in a drawer. "Tonight you remembered that too late." He shook his head. "So what? You're leaving because of a room?" I almost laughed then, but gently, because he still did not understand. "I'm leaving because you canceled it." The difference was everything. I did not sleep in Breckan's casita. I slept in casita too, the room Oren had booked for me before my husband decided I needed a lesson. I put the key card on the bedside table and looked at my name until the letters blurred. In the morning, Oren was waiting outside with 2 coffees in paper cups from the lodge kitchen. He handed me one and sat in the courtyard chair beside mine. For a while, neither of us spoke. The mountains were pale purple in the early light. Somewhere behind the kitchen, someone dropped a pan. Life continued with its ordinary noises, even after a family's polished surface cracked. Finally, Oren said, "A room is a small thing until someone uses it to show you where they think you belong." I held the cup with both hands. "And where do I belong now?" He looked toward the mountains, not at me. "Anywhere you can stand without shrinking." It was the closest thing to tenderness I had ever heard from him, and it was enough. 6 months later, I was back in Fort Collins, living in a smaller apartment with better light and fewer ghosts. The divorce was not final yet, because men like Breckan negotiate endings the way they negotiate apologies, slowly and with too much concern for how they look. He was working at the Pueblo warehouse under supervision, learning inventory systems from people he used to ignore at company picnics. The audit found more borrowed work, more inflated claims, more corners polished in presentations and dirty underneath. Vera stopped texting me advice about being graceful. Tovia left the family group chat after someone asked why the legacy portraits were never posted. Lowell sent one stiff message that said, "I regret how the weekend unfolded," which was not an apology, but it was at least a sentence facing the right direction. Oren's company survived the audit. The Emberlight 5.3 relaunched with safer parts and clearer warnings. My name appeared in the compliance record. I took the consulting contract for 6 months, billed full rate, and did the work with the same clean precision I had always given away for free. I kept the Juniper Mesa keycard in the top drawer of my desk. Not because I missed the lodge. Not because I wanted to remember Breckan. I kept it because some objects tell the truth better than people do. A room can be a bed and a bathroom and a place to put your suitcase. Or it can be proof. Proof that someone tried to remove you quietly. Proof that you did not vanish. Proof that the door with your name on it still opened when the right person stopped pretending not to see. For years, I thought love meant adjusting before anyone had to ask. I thought being easy made me good. I thought loyalty meant carrying the garment bag even after the man who owned it let me walk into the night alone. I was wrong. Love does not cancel your room and call you dramatic for noticing. Family does not erase your name and call it teamwork. And pride, no matter how polished, cannot survive forever in a room where the records are finally read out loud. So if you have ever been the person expected to solve every problem except the pain people caused you, listen carefully. Sometimes the missing room is not the whole story. Sometimes it is the receipt. Sometimes it shows you exactly who made space for themselves by pushing you into the hallway. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk back in, place the proof on the table, and let the truth take the chair you were denied. If this story reminded you of someone who keeps adjusting for people who never protect them, share it with them. Leave your thoughts below and subscribe for the next story. Commentary, discussion, explanation, and lessons. Before we move away from this story, let's stay with it for a moment, because this was not only a story about a hotel room. On the surface, yes, Rilla reached the lodge, asked for her room, and found out her husband had canceled it. That alone is painful. But if we look deeper, the room was only the visible part of the problem. The real problem was the message behind it. Breckan was not just careless. He was not just busy. He did not forget. He made a choice, and that choice said, "Your comfort does not matter as much as my image." That is why this story hits so hard. A missing reservation can be fixed. A canceled place in someone's life is much harder to explain away, and the way Breckan behaved in the lobby showed us something important. When Rilla was hurt, he did not become worried. He became annoyed. That tells us everything. A loving person may make a mistake, but when they see you standing there embarrassed, they move toward you. They do not protect their pride first. Breckan protected his pride before he protected his wife, and that is where the real betrayal started. Let's look closely at Rilla's position. She was not weak. She was not helpless. She had a career, discipline, intelligence, and a strong sense of responsibility. She was the kind of person who made life easier for everyone around her. She checked details. She carried things. She solved problems before other people even noticed there was a problem. But this is exactly why the family took advantage of her. They did not see her strength as something to respect. They saw it as permission to ignore her. This is a very real pattern in many families and marriages. The person who is calm gets less care. The person who is responsible gets more work. The person who can handle pain gets handed more pain. People say, "You are strong." But sometimes what they really mean is, "We do not have to show up for you." That is why Rilla's story is not just about marriage. It is about emotional labor. It is about being useful but not valued. It is about being trusted with everyone's problems, but not being protected when you have one of your own. Breckan's family had a polished way of being cruel. They did not always scream. They did not always insult directly. They used soft words that sounded polite but carried disrespect inside them. Vera called Rilla practical. Tovia called her independent. Breckan said she always handled things. These words sound harmless until we see how they are used. In this family, practical meant, "Do not complain." Independent meant, "Do not expect help." "You always handle things" meant, "We can leave you alone with the damage." This is one of the biggest lessons in the story. Sometimes people do not need ugly words to hurt you. Sometimes they use nice words as a cover. They praise your patience while depending on your silence. They praise your strength while refusing to give you support. They praise your flexibility while taking away your place. That is why Rilla's quiet reaction matters. She did not need to prove she was hurt by yelling. Her calmness was not weakness. It was control. Now let's pause at that lobby scene, because that is the moment where the marriage becomes clear. Rilla asks a simple question. Where was she supposed to sleep? That question is powerful because it removes every excuse. It is not dramatic. It is not emotional. It is practical. And Breckan's answer exposes him. He says he thought she would solve it. Think about that. He created the problem, then expected her to carry the solution. That is a very common kind of selfishness. Some people do not only hurt you, they also expect you to manage the hurt in a way that keeps them comfortable. They want to disrespect you quietly, and then they want you to respond quietly too. Breckan wanted Rilla to disappear into a motel, fix the situation herself, come back smiling, and protect his perfect weekend. He was counting on her old habit of adjustment. But this time, she did something different. She left. Not in a loud way, not in a messy way. She simply refused to stand there and make his behavior look normal. The motel scene is important because that is where the story slows down and becomes more honest. At the lodge, everything was public. There were people, lights, expensive clothes, and family performance. At the Blue Kiln Motor Inn, there was no performance left. Just Rilla, a thin blanket, highway noise, and the truth. This is where she checks the messages and sees that nobody is sorry. That part matters even more than the canceled room. When people hurt you, the next thing they do tells you whether there is hope. Do they take responsibility? Do they ask if you are safe? Do they say, "I was wrong"? Or do they blame you for reacting? Breckan said she made it awkward. Vera told her to behave. Lowell told her to apologize and sleep on a sofa. Nobody asked the right question. Nobody said, "How did we let this happen?" That silence was evidence. Not legal evidence yet, but emotional evidence. It showed Rilla that the family did not see the injury. They only saw the inconvenience of her refusing to hide it. The friend Merritt plays a small role, but her words are a turning point. She tells Rilla that a husband who forgets a room is careless, but a husband who cancels it is making a point. That line gives Rilla language for what she already feels. This is why good friends matter in stories and in real life. A good friend does not always rescue you. Sometimes they simply name the truth so clearly that you cannot keep avoiding it. Merritt does not tell Rilla to burn everything down. She does not push her into revenge. She helps her see the difference between accident and intention. That difference is huge. If Breckan had forgotten the room and then apologized, the story would be different. But he canceled the room, watched her stand there, and treated her pain like a public relations problem. That is not forgetfulness. That is a power move. And once Rilla sees it clearly, she stops negotiating with herself. The blue folder adds another layer to the story. This is where the plot becomes more than a marriage conflict. We learn that Breckan did not only erase Rilla from the room, he erased her from the work too. She had done real compliance analysis. She had found a safety issue that could have hurt the company. She had created a correction plan. Breckan took that work, cleaned it up, and presented it as his own. This is very important because it connects the personal betrayal to the professional betrayal. A person who can erase you at home may also erase you in public. A person who takes your care for granted may also take your ideas for granted. Breckan's problem was not only that he was a bad husband in one moment. His problem was character. He wanted the reward without the humility. He wanted the title without the discipline. He wanted the wife's labor without the wife's name. That is why Grandpa Oren's judgment feels fair. He is not punishing Breckan for one room. He is judging a pattern. Grandpa Oren is powerful in this story because he does not act like an emotional savior. He acts like a man who understands records, responsibility, and consequence. He does not rush into the lobby and make a scene. He watches, he checks, he gathers proof. Then, when the right moment comes, he speaks in front of the people who need to hear it. This is a different kind of power. It is not loud power, it is clean power. Oren understands something that Breckan does not. Leadership starts in small choices. If a man cannot be trusted with a hotel reservation, why should he be trusted with a company? If he can cancel his wife's room to protect his ego, what would he cancel inside a business when the truth becomes uncomfortable? Oren sees the link between private character and public leadership. That is one of the strongest lessons in the whole story. The way people treat those closest to them is not separate from who they are. It is the clearest sample of who they are. The founder's dinner works almost like a courtroom, but without a judge's robe. The table, the family, the board members, the attorney, the records, the blue folder, all of it creates a public moment of truth. Breckan expects praise. He expects promotion. He expects the room to see him as the future of the company. Instead, the room sees the part he tried to hide. And notice how Rilla does not have to attack him. She simply says what happened. "I needed a room. My husband canceled it." That is enough. Truth does not need decoration when the facts are strong. This is something many people forget. When we are hurt, we sometimes think we need to explain everything perfectly, prove our pain emotionally, and make people understand every detail. But in this scene, Rilla's power comes from being exact. She does not beg for sympathy. She does not perform sadness. She places one clear fact in the middle of the room, and the rest of the truth starts to unfold. Breckan's reaction also teaches us something. When exposed, he does not first apologize. He tries to rename the situation. He says she overreacted. He says she likes handling her own things. He tries to turn intention into misunderstanding. This is a common defense for people who are used to controlling the story. They do not deny only the action. They deny your right to interpret it. They want to be the one who decides what their behavior means, even when you are the one who suffered from it. But the records stop him. That is why proof matters in this kind of story. The cancellation record, the refund, the email, the blue folder, the copied proposal. These details remove the fog. They show that Rilla was not being sensitive. She was being accurate. And accuracy is dangerous to people who survive by controlling perception. When Grandpa says that a man who cancels his wife's room does not get the keys to his company, he is not just making a dramatic statement. He is defining leadership. Leadership is not charm. It is not family name. It is not a nice dinner jacket or a good toast. Leadership is how you handle power when nobody can force you to be fair. Breckan had power over the booking. He used it to humiliate his wife. He had access to Rilla's work. He used it to raise himself. He had trust from his grandfather. He used it to build an image. So when Oren takes away the promotion, the company card, and the executive path, it feels earned. He is not being cruel. He is removing power from someone who already proved he would misuse it. That is a life lesson, too. Consequences are not always revenge. Sometimes consequences are protection. They protect the company, the workers, the customers, and the truth. Rilla's quiet strength is the emotional center of the story. She does not become bitter. She does not try to destroy everyone for entertainment. Even when she wins the public moment, she does not celebrate Breckan's humiliation. She feels recognition, not revenge. That difference makes her strong. Revenge would be about wanting Breckan to hurt. Recognition is about finally letting the room know that she was hurt. There is maturity in that. Many stories make justice look like screaming, but this one shows justice as documentation, calm speech, and a door with her name on it. Rilla's power is not that Grandpa protects her. Her power is that she finally stops protecting Breckan from the truth. For years, she helped him look better than he was. That night, she simply stopped doing that. Sometimes that is all it takes for a false image to fall apart. The courtyard conversation after dinner is short, but it gives us the emotional ending of the marriage. Breckan says, "You ruined me." That line tells us he still does not understand. He sees exposure as the injury, not his own behavior. He thinks the damage began when Rilla spoke, not when he canceled the room. This is how selfish people often think. They are not upset that they did wrong. They are upset that the wrong became visible. Rilla's answer is powerful because it is simple. She stopped helping him hide. That is the real divorce before the legal divorce. The emotional separation happens right there. She is no longer his editor, his shield, his silent assistant, or his excuse. She is a person standing in front of him with clear eyes. When he says, "You're my wife," it is too late because he only remembers that title when he needs protection. He forgot it when she needed respect. The ending with Casita too is peaceful, and that peace matters. Rilla finally sleeps in the room that was meant for her. This is not only a practical detail, it is a symbol. All through the story, her place was treated like something optional. At the end, her name is on the key card. Her name is on the compliance record. Her name is attached to paid work, not hidden labor. That is a complete emotional circle. The same woman who walked out with a suitcase in humiliation now has a door that opens for her. And Grandpa's line about belonging anywhere she can stand without shrinking gives the story its final lesson. Belonging is not just being allowed into a room. Belonging means you do not have to become smaller to stay there. If you have to silence yourself, erase your work, carry everyone's needs, and accept public disrespect just to remain connected, that is not belonging. That is emotional rent, and the price is too high. So what do we learn from Rilla's story? First, we learn that small actions can reveal big truths. A room cancellation might seem like one event, but it exposed a whole marriage. Second, we learn that being strong does not mean accepting less care. Strong people need respect too. Responsible people need support too. Independent people still deserve a place. Third, we learn that private disrespect often becomes public damage if it is not challenged. Breckan's treatment of Rilla was not separate from his business dishonesty. It came from the same root: entitlement. Fourth, we learn that truth needs timing and proof. Rilla did not waste her energy fighting every insult in the lobby. She saved the facts, returned with dignity, and spoke when the room could no longer ignore her. And finally, we learn that leaving is not always about anger. Sometimes leaving is the first honest act after years of adjustment. The deepest message is this: do not confuse being needed with being loved. Rilla was needed. Breckan needed her skills. His family needed her quiet labor. The company unknowingly needed her judgment. But being needed is not the same as being honored. Love protects your place. Love says your name out loud. Love does not use your strength as a reason to abandon you. If someone only values you when you are fixing, carrying, editing, forgiving, or adjusting, then they may not love you as much as they love the service you provide. That is a hard truth, but it is better than living inside a soft lie. Rilla's story reminds us that the moment you stop doing invisible work for people who erase you, everything changes. Some people will call it betrayal. Some will call it drama. Some will say you ruined them. But maybe you did not ruin anything. Maybe you only turned on the lights. And for anyone watching who has ever been treated like Rilla, this is the part to hold on to. You do not have to wait for a grandfather, a lawyer, or a public dinner to decide that you deserve space. You do not need a dramatic speech to know when something is wrong. Sometimes your body knows before your mind admits it. Sometimes the message, the missing seat, the forgotten invitation, the canceled room, or the small public joke tells you everything. Pay attention. Not with paranoia, but with self-respect. Ask yourself, when I am hurt, do these people move toward me or protect themselves? When I speak, do they listen or manage my tone? When I help, do they credit me or erase me? When I need space, do they make room or make excuses? Those answers matter. Rilla did not win because Breckan lost a promotion. She won because she stopped shrinking. She won because her name returned to the places where it belonged. She won because she learned that peace is not found by being easy for people who are hard on you. Peace begins when you stop proving your worth